Morning, Christine Regan Lake here. Hope all is well. So today I am continuing my discussion on the 18 schemas that humanity struggles with. And a schema is basically a core belief, a global metaphor. It's basically an idea that clouds your vision. It's kind of like wearing a pair of glasses with a belief that you see everything through that belief. And so it clouds your judgment on everything. So today's schema we're going to talk about is the failure schema. So what is the failure schema? How does it come about and how does it affect your life? So the failure schema typically results in children who grow up in an environment that is incredibly stressful with parents who are hypercritical, who are always kind of criticizing everything that they do so that they feel like they can't do anything right. They feel like somehow they're incompetent and things like that. So what happens as a result is that it develops incredible feelings of like that I'm stupid, I'm incapable, I'm a failure at anything I do. As a result, the failure schema will result in you will either procrastinate stuff and you'll never start anything because you're convinced you're going to fail anyway, so what is the point? The other thing that happens is that if you have a failure schema, you may stay in a job for years and years and years that is really beneath your full potential because it's safe. You don't have to risk anything, and it keeps you in your comfort zone, but ultimately you end up really frustrated because at some level it's beneath your potential, and you're staying there because of this belief that you have at the subconscious level that is really sabotaging. It's really sabotaging your life. And I'll be honest with you, when I first developed these, first came upon these schemas and started learning about them, like I do with anything, I immediately said, okay, I got to assess myself and see which one of these resonate with me. And for sure, I struggled with the failure schema. That no matter, I was so hard on myself for anything that I did that, even when I pulled stuff across the finish line and executed and did something, I would beat myself up that, it wasn't good enough, that even though I did it and I completed it, somehow I was still a failure. And so it was a really brutal one for me. It was one that, that word just echoed in my head like for decades. No matter what I did, I could never be good enough. I could never live up to a ridiculous standard that I set for myself. And I would, I'd be like, well, not necessarily that I told people this, not that I was like speaking about it to people, but it was definitely an internal tape in my head that, oh my God, I'm a failure, I'm a failure, I'm a failure, whatever. And it was so detrimental to me. And I'm someone who's been on the self-development journey for a long time, but there are some beliefs that are so deeply embedded in our subconscious mind. It can take a long time to fully release it. And like I always say, any kind of healing is really like we're like an onion. You heal one layer of something and then you go to the next layer of the onion and you go to the next layer and you go to the next layer. And we can only heal and forgive to the level of our consciousness. And then as we move down the road and we become more conscious and we evolve and we grow stronger, the stronger we become, the more strength we have to go to the deeper layer of stuff that can be really brutally hard to look at, to explore, to examine, to forgive, to even look at. So if you struggle with feelings of, I'm a failure, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, I'm incompetent, you may have the failure schema. And so again, like all of these schemas we've been talking about all along, how do you go about healing this stuff? So if you have the failure schema, if you know for certain, like you're like, yep, that word is a definite trigger for me. I've definitely struggled with feeling of being incompetent or feeling or knowing that I procrastinate shit or staying in a job for, years and years and years that is way beneath my potential, that doesn't challenge me and, pushing me, to step up and be, everything that I can be. if you struggle with those feelings of failure, then try to go back to your childhood. Try to think like in the first 7 years of your life and think of emotionally traumatizing experiences, emotionally upsetting experiences that gave you the belief that I'm a failure, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, whatever. Or, other experiences where you were experiencing those feelings of like fight or flight. For me, part of my, what added to my failure schema for myself was, I would get massive test anxiety. So, I would go to sit and take a test. I love learning. I'm like a super geek when it comes to learning. I, listen to documentaries all the time, whatever. But tell me I have to take a test, and next thing you know, I get fight or flight, I get anxiety, my head freezes up, whatever. So for children who grew up in an environment where there was a ton of stress and anxiety, being in a stressful environment is not a conducive experience. It's not a conducive environment for your brain to be able to think, to be able to operate at optimal capacity. So that's something else to think about. But go back to your childhood. Think about, whatever memories you can think of. Like when you think of failure as a childhood, in your childhood, go back and think to an experience where you had something that made you feel like, oh my God, I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid, I'm incompetent, I'm a failure, whatever it might have been. It could have been something in school where you took a test, it could have been with your parents that were hypercritical, whatever it is. But try to go back to that experience and look at it from a new perspective and, release the negative charge, do the body work that I showed you in another episode about, trying to figure out, okay, well, where am I storing that in my body? Is it in my chest, in my heart, in my stomach? What shape is it? What color is it? What texture is it? What emotions are in there? Who do I need to forgive? And the reason that exercise is so powerful is because when you do that, when you connect to that stuck energy in your body and you're asking, what is the color, what is the shape, what is the texture, what is the level of intensity, what are the emotions, you're not going into the story. And the story doesn't help you, because what happened is you had an experience in your childhood that taught you a lesson, right? You created a story around what that experience meant. The story is all bullshit and it doesn't really matter. And when you go into the story, you're into the intellectual piece and you're not in the body. You want to forget the story. It's not about the story. It's really just about connecting to the energy of where that emotional trauma was stuck and connecting with it. Feel that energy and then release it. But as you're feeling it, don't let yourself go to that story. The story is bullshit. It doesn't mean anything. It's the meaning you gave it, but it's not true. It's not real. The story you created was because this and this and this happened. That was proof positive that I'm a stupid idiot, that I'm a failure at everything I do. That's just a story that your ego created trying to figure out what was going on in your environment. Just because that's a story doesn't mean it's true. So so it's about connecting with that energy of that failure moment, that failure experience, it, feeling it in those moments, and it doesn't last long. It's a very, easy process. It's a very gentle process that as you feel it, it starts dissipating and then it leaves. But that's a conscious way to process those stuck emotions. So I hope you found value in that. Again, that is the failure schema. You are not a failure. You are not incompetent. You are not, stupid. You have an experience that your ego created a story saying that was true, but just because that you created that story doesn't mean it's true. And maybe it's time to release that story, release that negative emotional charge in your body so that you can step fully into your full potential, step into your power, own the beauty and the gifts and the talent and the creativity and the leadership and all of those beautiful talents and gifts and strengths that you have, and unleash them onto the world, because you deserve to have the best of everything you've ever desired. And releasing a failure schema is probably the most powerful thing you can do if that's a schema that you personally struggle with. So I hope you found value. Have a beautiful day, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks. Bye.